very, very successful podcast now. And how do people access that, Dinesh?
Dennis, it's available on audio at Apple and Spotify and Google, and on video on YouTube and Rumble. So it's available either to listen to or to watch on video, and it's got a lot of followers on both platforms.
And as well at the Salem Podcast Network.
Yes, absolutely. It's on salemnow.com also.
Right, which has a growing presence in the world of the internet. So one of my joys is talking to somebody I respect and not knowing if I differ or agree on a certain subject. So I asked you whether or not there is this unbridgeable gap between those who want to control us. Because I asked you, I'm reviewing this for my listeners' sake. So I asked Dinesh, what is the ultimate end game of the left? And he said, the joy of control. And I believe that I believe that is true. I have an additional, not contrary of additional view. I believe that they're animated by a love of chaos. Chaos leads to control, but I think that there is a deep element of chaos. If you have to say men give birth, that's more chaos than even control, though it's related to both. Okay, so I said, I don't see in me the desire to control. I could see in me the desire to rob a bank. Okay? I don't. It's immoral. It's illegal. It's etc. But I can understand robbing a bank. I don't understand the desire to control people like Gavin Newsom controls the people of California. I can't relate to it. But you said, but in fact, it may be more universal than I, Dennis, think. And if one has the opportunity to truly, let's say, ban ideas that are perceived as injurious, a lot of people would want to do so. So I give you an interesting counterexample. It made a big impact on me as a very young person. As a kid, there was a march in Skokie, Illinois by Nazis, not neo-Nazis, real deal American Nazis, swastikas and all. And they chose Skokie because they were sadists. That's where a lot of Holocaust survivors lived. So these people had to relive the horror of seeing Nazis march down their streets. Virtually every Jewish organization, every liberal organization defended the Nazis' right. I would defend the Nazis' right to march in a Jewish neighborhood in the United States. So even if I had the power to suppress the march, I wouldn't use it. So tell me why that does not somewhat answer your challenge to me.
I would say that in a strange way, it corroborates what I've been saying in this way. It's not really a counterexample. Here's all I would point out, and that is that, I agree with your position with regard to Skokie, but I would say that that is a hard-won position, by which I mean that's not the natural way to feel. If you're, and I don't have to tell you this, but if you're a Jewish family, let's say with Holocaust survivors in your ancestry or your parents and so on, you see these Nazis marching, your initial, natural, understandable impulse is to round those guys up and stop them from doing that. Not only are they exercising a right to free, they're doing it with deliberate, provocative motive. So you'd be like, what possible good can be achieved by that? And your impulse is to stop it. Now, you have to be sufficiently tutored in the principles of liberty to suppress that natural impulse and say, even though I feel that way and I'm right to feel that way, I'm going to hold back because I believe in the principle of free speech. If they start with the Nazis, next they'll be getting the socialists, and next they'll be getting everyone else. And so you have to deploy this battery of arguments for why you should abstain from doing what is natural to do. And that's what I was getting at. The impulse to tyranny, to control is natural. It's not even entirely wrong, but liberalism or classical liberalism teaches us to suppress it in appropriate instances.
So that, fair enough. It's an excellent answer. So therefore, that would mean that in Dennis and Dinesh, the love of liberty has been so deeply assimilated into our beings, that's the reason for the gulf between us and the left.
Yes, although if tempted, we are, I would say you and I are in the, I would say loosely in the virtue business, which is to say we believe not just in the free society, but the virtuous society. So if somebody were able to say to us, hey, Dinesh and Dennis can get together and essentially regulate the sexual mores of the whole society so we have wholesome families, very little divorce, very little of all the stuff we see going on today, we would be tempted to say, yeah, this might be a good way to go. Our society has lost its moorings, and if you and I were in charge, we can help to restore them. So virtue is always a temptation to override liberty. And here's my point. For the left, they have developed this artificial sense of virtue and indignation so that they, too, their tyrannical impulses are always driven by some claim to higher virtue. It's not that they don't see the value of liberty, but they're willing to override it in the name of some greater good.
Wow. Good stuff. All right, watch his video at PragerU explaining this new Marxism, and watch his podcast through Salem and so many other venues. Thank you, Dinesh. Hey, folks.